Hi, Studio Recap here. Today, we're going to talk about a movie called The Invisible Maniac in sci-fi and comedy genres. Spoiler alert is on. Watch out and take care. Scientist Kevin Dornwinkle is mocked by his colleagues after his invisibility serum fails, driving him to madness and ending their lives. Sent to a psych ward to face consequences, his ambitions are far from over. The psychologist tells his mother, Mrs. Dornwinkle, that her son is emotionally unstable and needs understanding, but nothing will stop him. The psychologist mentions Kevin's borderline genius and confusion, stressing the need for guidance. Meanwhile, Kevin spies on his female neighbor through a telescope. His mother catches him, furious, slaps him, and scolds him, claiming women are evil. She locks him in his room for a year, blocking all the windows. Years later, Dr. Ken Dornwinkle, now a scientist, presents his invisibility serum at conference, injecting it into himself to prove its success. But it fails. Unable to bear the humiliation, Kevin attacks, killing 4 of them. The incident makes national news, with Kevin sent to an asylum after being declared mentally unfit to stand trial. 6 months later, Kevin Dornwinkle escapes the hospital, outwitting hounds chasing him by making him fetch a piece of wood. 2 weeks later, summer school begins, and students gossip about their deceased physics teacher, more concerned about skipping class than feeling sympathy. The principal, Mrs. Cello, suddenly enters, and the students immediately straighten up. Mrs. Cello introduces Dr. Dornwinkle as Dr. Kevin Smith, the new physics teacher, and hands over the class. Ken awkwardly starts by saying he wants everyone to have a good time, then asks for the 4 basic principles of physics. When a pretty student named Vicky answers with the 4 basic food groups instead, the class bursts into laughter. Ken controls his emotions and continues the lecture, disappointing the class, who hoped he'd leave. Later, while the cheerleaders practice in gym, Kevin watches them, lost in his fantasies. Meanwhile, male students also watch, and Chet calls his girlfriend Bunny to the bleachers. He kisses her and even suggests getting more intimate right there. The woman playfully rejects Chet, promising to meet after class. They insult Dornwinkle and plan a prank on him. After a kiss, cheerleaders head to the shower, unaware that Kevin overhears them. On the way, Chet mocks the mute janitor, Henry. Later, he secretly watches the cheerleaders shower, and once satisfied, walks away happily. Dr. Dornwinkle replaces Chet and catches sight of his female students in the shower. Startled, he crouches and defensively claims it's nothing when someone grabs his shoulders. Mrs. Cello, confused, asks, "What's going on?" He quickly explains he dropped some change. The principal shares a similar experience and tells him April's parents want him to tutor her in physics, handing him the contact details before he leaves. That night, Dr. Dornwinkle records his thoughts, expressing disappointment in his students' lack of appreciation, but remains hopeful about teaching and continuing his experiment. The next day, he resumes work on his invisibility serum and finally discovers the missing component, H3. Excited, he adds it to his mixture and injects it into a rabbit at 2:37 a.m., but the serum fails again. Despite the setback, Dr. Dornwinkle remains determined, believing he's close to cracking the formula. He completes his invisibility serum with a 3 and granulated buriox. At 11:36 p.m., June 28, he injects the rabbit and turns invisible within seconds. He then injects himself, feeling his body heat up before becoming invisible too. Celebrating his success, he laughs maniacally, proud of his solo achievement. 10 minutes later, the rabbit reappears. The doctor falls asleep and dreams of his female students, inviting him to join them in the shower. He wakes up to realize it's morning and records his thoughts about the serum's side effects, including its impact on his dreams and his desire to re-inject himself. Remembering Mrs. Cello gave him April's address, he injects himself at night and sneaks to her home. He finds April sleeping soundly and slowly pulls her blanket off. He tugs at April's nightgown, exposing her upper body, but she shifts in her sleep, so he quietly leaves. The next day, Vicky approaches him seductively, offering to do anything for an A in physics. He refuses, advising her to focus on her studies, but she places his hand on her chest. The bell rings and students flood the room. To shift their attention, Dornwinkle gives a surprise quiz. The students complain, but he insists, and they reluctantly take it. Meanwhile, Gordon and the others exchange mischievous glances. Everyone drops their books simultaneously, startling Dornwinkle. The students laugh at his confusion, but it triggers memories of his past, and he snaps. He screams at them, announcing everyone gets an F, souring the class mood. Meanwhile, Principal Cello calls Chet to her office, where she warns him that his unsatisfactory grades could hinder his college prospects. Chet asks about his football scholarship, and Mrs. Cello explains it's only possible with her approval. When he asks how, she suggests a compromise, unbuttoning her shirt and offering a condition for him to make her feel like a woman. Later, the cheerleaders finish practice and gossip in the showers, mocking their physics teacher. Vicky shares her attempt to seduce him, and they all laugh at him. Unbeknownst to them, Dornwinkle, using the serum, is already in the showers, watching them. In his mind, Kevin reflects that the serum strengthens one's deepest desires. As the cheerleaders leave, Vicky stays in the shower, unaware that Henry is peeking at her. Suddenly, Chat grabs a janitor and threatens him, ignoring Henry's attempts to speak. Then, Chat watches Vicky instead. The next day, Henry enters the men's room, but Chat and Gordon drive him out. The students comment on how strange the mute is and discuss their plans to prank Dornwinkle, unaware he's overhearing them from the next cubicle. Later during class, Dornwinkle is called to Principal Sella's office. When he enters, he finds her sitting with her back to him. She asks about his personal life, particularly if he has a wife or girlfriend. Upon learning he doesn't, she turns around wearing a black nightgown. Mrs. Cello tells Dornwinkle she finds him attractive and suggests they fulfill each other's needs. When he refuses, she gets angry, revealing the empty syringe she used for the invisibility serum and threatens to call the police. Kevin slowly approaches her, caresses her cheek, and kisses her, then stabs her with a letter opener. Later, he returns to the classroom, spaced out, only to have a bucket of water pour on him when he opens the door. He locks all the doors in the school before injecting himself with the invisibility serum. Meanwhile, Betty and Bubba sit in the cafeteria, hearing the news of the ongoing search for Dr. Dornwinkle. Bubba turns off the radio, disinterested, and they kiss passionately. Suddenly, Bubba's arm is lifted as he struggles against something. Invisible Dornwinkle eats a sandwich as Betty screams in horror, watching it forcefully pushed into Bubba's throat. Betty runs, but Dornwinkle catches her, ripping off her blouse and strangling her with a fire hose. He leaves her lifeless body behind, laughing madly. Moments later, cheerleaders April and Joan find the locked doors, take a detour, and discover Betty's body. April and Joan run to the classroom to tell her teacher about Betty and the locked doors. Dornwinkle, pretending concern, offers to call the police. But when they trust him, he turns invisible again and speaks mischievously as they try to calm down. The ladies feel nervous as they hear Dornwinkle's voice, but when they try to leave, the door is locked. The invisible scientist throws a globe at them, pushes April aside, and drags her to the aquarium to drown her. He mocks April before strangling her. Meanwhile, Gordon and Vicky finish their game. And though Gordon senses something's wrong, Vicky heads off to shower. Vicky, in the shower, hears strange noises and is electrocuted when radio is tossed onto the floor. Gordon, growing concerned, finds her lifeless in her locker and screams. As he panics, the invisible Dornwinkle punches him, causing Gordon to flee. Gordon, trapped inside the school, fights off the invisible Dornwinkle but is overpowered. After a brutal beating, he falls off the rooftop, landing on a car below. Meanwhile, Chat and Bunny enter Principal Sella's office, unaware of her lifeless body behind the desk. Chat and Bunny share an intimate moment, but Chat avoids discussing marriage, citing his parents' divorce as a reason. Afterward, Henry discovers Principal Sella's lifeless body while cleaning the office. Heck, he tries to warn others, but his mute cries go unheard. Bunny finds Vicky's lifeless body in the locker room and screams for Chat. Believing Henry is the culprit, Chat attacks the janitor. However, Dornwinkle, now invisible, grabs Chat's arm and pushes them both to the floor. He immobilizes Bunny before laughing maniacally. Bunny calls for Chat's help, but he struggles to see Dornwinkle. After a brutal fight, Chat lands a punch and finally overpowers the scientist. As the serum wears off, Dornwinkle becomes visible again. When Bunny asks why, he shows no remorse and discovers his syringe is empty. Chat tries to confront Dornwinkle, but the mad scientist overpowers him, leaving him unconscious. Dornwinkle then attacks Bunny before heading home, where he records his thoughts, mocking his students and reveling in his power. Just then, Chat appears with a shotgun, threatening Dornwinkle. Unfazed, Dornwinkle reaches for a serum, but Chat stops him. Dornwinkle hits Chat with a glass bottle and becomes invisible again. Chat fires blindly, then injects himself with the serum, turning invisible too. The two fight fiercely while the police arrive but can't get in. A gunshot rings out, and a headless body in a white shirt falls. The cops break in, find the body, and assume Dornwinkle took his own life. They leave with the syringe, but Dornwinkle's laugh echoes as he returns to his original form.